podcast in the building. Make sure you hit the like, hit the share, hit the subscribe button, turn your notifications on. HP in the building, Archie Carter in the building. Make sure you guys sign up for the Patreon, exclusive content, never before seen content, early access to content. We actually got a new segment up there called They Got Us with Archie Carter and HP. 2 episodes in, Yokozuna and The Undertaking Kane. They Got Us as a series when basically, you got, man. The WWE, they know something on how to put together that storyline, and that's the great thing about wrestling storylines. But it's storylines that are not actually true, but it got us as the viewers. When did y'all find out that Yokozuna was not from Japan? When did you find out Undertaking Kane were not actually brothers? Go to the Patreon, check that series out, get all the double ups early, get all the interviews early, get all the never seen bonus episodes early, all on the Patreon. Double up. If y'all don't know what this series is, this is where we take 2 wrestlers from 2 different promotions. We put together the pros and cons about them, and then we come to a decision on which character was better, and we hang that jersey in the Raptors. Right now, big shout out to Sid Vicious, SYCHO Sid. He has brought the Attitude Era podcast a tremendous amount of buzz right now with the interview. Shout out to Gamaj for capturing the interview. The interview has over 11K views. Keep watching it. We're trying to get it to 20 to 30. It's being picked up by WrestleMania. It's been picked up by so many other sites commenting on Sid Vicious being in the Hall of Fame or not. And today's episode is about Sid Vicious. Which character was better, Sid Vicious or SYCHO Sid? And before we get into our pros and cons about SYCHO Sid, let's hear SYCHO Sid break down what he thought was better, WCW or WWF at the time.
Okay. So what would you say when in comparison with WWE and WCW? What was the difference with working for both?
Well, it's 2 sides of everything, right? So as a wrestler or a guy in this business, the WWF give you an opportunity to succeed in a big way. Meaning, if you went out there in your main event, you go, okay, I know I was somewhat responsible for this. You saw the reward of all your hard work. WCW, you never saw that in the crowd, so there were small crowds and they didn't know how to promote. But the other side, WCW was a much easier company to work for, more like a family company, and the pay was like 10 to 1. So versus that's how it's worked out for me.
Oh, okay.
So Archie, we here, man. What we doing, man? Sid Vicious versus SYCHO Sid. Where we starting off with? Whose character we breaking down first?
I'm just gonna refer to him as Sid because he was Sid Vicious, he was Sid Justice, he was SYCHO Sid. So to make it easier, I'm gonna say WCW Sid and WWE Sid.
Okay.
So we're gonna start with the pros of WCW Sid. DNA, you want a clock? Let's go.
Okay. Pros of WCW Sid. Sid in WCW was able to capture the big gold. He had 2 runs in WCW, but the second time around was better than the first time around because the second time around he won that actual title. And who did he beat to win that title? Kevin Nash, which holds a lot of validity to it because you didn't just beat anybody for the title. You beat the guy that was calling the shots. So the guy that was calling the shots in WCW knew and respected what Sid did, so he wanted to put that belt on him because Kevin Nash easily could have said, no, I'm not giving it to you because he was calling the shots. But he knew the talent that Sid had, and he gave him the title. He also won the United States title in WCW. And I also feel like his run in WCW revived his career after the injuries that he had in the WWF. And when he touched the independent circuit, that is one of the last big runs that Sid had was in WCW. So I think it was a successful run the second time around. Good night.
That is. Well, I'm going to keep the train going. I'm going to say first run in WCW, Sid was a single. Then he was in a tag team with Dan Spivey, managed by Teddy Long. And this is where he developed the powerbomb. He had feuds with the Road Warriors, the Steiner brothers, and in his feud with the Steiner brothers, he actually got hurt. Then when he came back, he was a 4 horseman. So Sid came in as a single, but when he got into the tag team world, he was on fire. Sid always had a look about him. And when he was in that tag team with Dan Spivey and got hurt, he was actually replaced by a man they called Mean Mark at the time, who later became The Undertaker. So Sid's career started off as a single. He got put in a tag, did work, crazy feuds with the Steiners, Road Warriors, Junkyard Dog, Sting, and this is all early WCW. So Sid was a top talent early in his career, and Sid and WCW did a lot of good work. HP, ready?
Yes, sir.
And go.
So you touched on Sid. One thing about Sid is Sid has, because we were doing WCW and WWF Sid, he has 2 runs in each company at 2 separate times. So I don't want to confuse you, but his first run, he's an 80s guy, 89. He's a part of the Four Horsemen from like 89 to 91, one of the most notorious groups and factions in wrestling history, right? And depending on who you ask, they may even say they might be the Supreme Team. He has 2 world title runs that he does in his last stint in WCW, where he has victories over, guys point out, Kevin Nash. He has victories over Scott Steiner. He has matches that are pretty good at Starrcade as well. And these are the things he has a sold out. He's headlining. So Sid is now at his WCW run in his last stint. He is headlining cards. He is the guy to beat. He actually breaks it open for Chris Benoit to become a breakout superstar.
There you have it, folks. That's how Double Up goes. We do 1 minute rounds of the pros, then 1 minute rounds of the cons. DNA, Sid and WCW, the cons.
One of the cons for Sid in WCW, he got injured. I feel like injuries was something that always set him back in his career, and it happened again right after he had that championship run. He got injured, and it kind of cut his WCW run short. Also, another con of the character in WCW was he won the belt towards the end of the WCW era. So it kind of really didn't hold weight. Like, he didn't win it when WCW was in their prime, when they were actually a dominant force. It's kind of like he got handed the belt on their way out. So it kind of doesn't hold the same validity as when he won the belt in WWF, WWE, which is now. It was also a short championship run. So it kind of really doesn't, hold that much weight, like in the grand scheme of things. I mean, it is something that you can say, but I don't think it was really memorable. And I would consider that a con, because when you win the belt of that magnitude, you want it to be something that sticks. Good night.
All right. My thing about Sid and WCW, DNA said it. His title was short and toward the end, and it was a lot of bad stuff going on in WCW at the end. Thing I remember the most is Goldberg. Like, what were we doing? Also, the injuries. I mentioned it in his first run. It was an injury that got him put out of the tag team. And DNA mentioned his second run, injury. And we all know the clip. Every time I see it online, I scroll by it. The infamous jump from the top rope, leg snap. That is part of his legacy and career, because it was so visible at the moment. And even in our interview, if you haven't seen it, go see it. He tells you that WCW wasn't as much of a workload. Kind of had a little freedom there. So again, short title run, injuries with athletes, it always leaves you with the question of what if. HP, ready? Go.
Yeah. So you talked about the injury. I'll start at the injury. That pay-per-view was a fatal 4-way with Scott Steiner, Jeff Jarrett, mystery guy. So in that last run, he has a lot of bad matches. And that's one thing that's like, he has a match with Kevin Nash, which is like, oh, this is about to be something, because Kevin Nash is booking. So, and we know Kevin Nash's resume, but it's a power bomb match at Starrcade. Who can get their power bomb off, literally? And they just didn't know what to do. He has a tag match with against Sting and Kevin Nash with Savage, Macho Man Randy Savage as his partner, Bombs, and that's at Bash at the Beach 1999. So he's got these bad matches towards that end where it's like, man, what happened to the old guy? What happened to the those days? So constant. Then he said it, short title runs. Again, you talked about his tag team work early, but we don't get tag team championships to kind of coincide with those things to really legitimize how great he really was in those groups.
There you have it, folks. The pros and cons of Psycho Sid, Sid Vicious, Sid Justice, whatever you call them, in WCW. So now we head over to WWF at the time. WWE said, here go the pros. DNA is on you.
The pros of WWE says that was his best character. The best character that I feel like he had in his whole career was in WWE as Psycho Sid. Psycho Sid legit scared me as a kid when his eyes got wide, when he started laughing, then getting serious, when he used to have the schizophrenic behavior. It was a great character that he created in WWE. Also, he won the belt in WWE 2 times, and he feuded with some of the biggest wrestlers in the history of wrestling: Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, The Undertaker, Diesel. He was part of the $1 Million Company. Main event matches, treated like a heavyweight, was in big storylines. Shawn Michaels' bodyguard, which then led to a feud with Shawn Michaels and Diesel. And just overall, I feel like his impact as Psycho Sid is just, you know what I mean, very memorable. I don't think you ever forget that character. You don't forget that moment, and you don't forget those titles that he won while he was in WWE.
All right.
Good night.
Good night.
DNA said it best. His best character works because I feel like Psycho Sid is who this man really is. For me, that's what it was. I think he had more fun in WWF. And again, if you haven't seen the interview, he talks about which he preferred himself. It's just he came in hot in the WWF. Like I said, he came in to the title picture. He came into big stories and big angles with some of the biggest names at the time, and he did good work there. But again, the bugged out eyes, the laugh, and the power bomb, like Sid in WWF, he popped off the screen. Like you had to look at him. To me, he was like DNA said, he scared him. To me, he was like a real life villain, because I feel that's who this man was. We even had a little message going on in the group chat before the interview. Kamach, don't piss off Sid, because we all think Psycho Sid is really Psycho Sid. HP?
Oh, I'm ready.
And go.
So with Psycho Sid, there was another character that he did play in the WWE because he did have the 2 stints, and that is Sid Justice. And I will do him some justice because he headlines WrestleMania 8 against the immortal Hulk Hogan. And that was huge because a lot of people thought that was going to be Flair versus Hogan, but it turned out to be him headlining that card. And then he was also did some special referee work for Hogan, which is how they worked out that storyline. And then in his second stint, he comes back and he fights for the major titles. And you ain't got to train 6'9", 320. He looked every bit of what he was. So when he comes back, he has some of the best matches with Bret the Hitman Hart. He wins the title on a Monday Night Raw. He shut Bret Hart. He headlines WrestleMania 13 against The Undertaker, and Bret Hart brought his ass out there talking that trash. And what Sid told him in the middle of the ring, shut your whiny ass up. You know what I'm saying? And that power bombed him straight to hell. Got him up out the ring. You know what I'm saying? Get up out of here. You know, so Sid.
Unfortunately, we talk pros, but we got to keep it real on Add to Our Podcast and talk the cons. DNA, cons of Psycho Sid and WWE.
Cons of Psycho Sid. I think this is just something that ran with him through his whole career, no matter what promotion he was in. Injury prone. I feel like the injuries once again stopped him from the greater run. I think if Psycho Sid doesn't get injured, we see Psycho Sid in the Attitude Era, which I think gives his character a little more longevity, makes it more you know what I mean, memorable to certain people like in my age group, because I caught the end of, you know, Psycho Sid and WWE, and I had to go watch back as I got older. But I feel like the injury stagnated his career, didn't allow him to go where he could actually go. I mean, to me, that would be the only thing that would be a con, because I feel like in WWE he got treated like a heavyweight. You know what I mean? He was in the big matches, he was talked about a lot. I just think the run wasn't long enough to I think he is a legend, but I think you know, the run wasn't long enough to be up there and, you know, them top 10 categories because of the injuries.
All right. For me, the con is the reason why our interview with Sid went viral. The debate about him not being in WWE Hall of Fame. To some people, it matters. To some people, it doesn't. But the reason why he said he's probably not in the Hall of Fame has something to do with Vince McMahon. I'm not going to spoil it, but you got to go watch the interview. That's a big con to me because I think once you get certain titles on you, it gives you validity. And yesterday's price ain't today's price. When that happens, that means your value goes up across the board. That and the injuries. Again, he mentioned it in an interview. He was asked, is it possible to come back, return, manage? Unfortunately, he said those injuries affected him from that point moving on. So injuries, again, with athletes, it leaves us with the big what if questions. And DNA, you said something crazy just now. What if SYCHO SID was in the Attitude Era? That's a big what if.
Mm-hmm.
HP, ready?
Yes, sir. So we talked about these things with SYCHO SID. He one of the things he did in WCW that was a pro was he got the US title, but in the WWE he never got a mid-card title. But he feuded with him in 1995. He goes against Razor Ramon and Heartbreak Kid, and it's almost like a three-way thing, except two of them come away with gold at different times. But not SYCHO SID. He also has some very poor matches. People always talk about the SummerSlam '96 with the Vader head stomp, but what nobody talk about SYCHO SID versus Davey Boy Smith, British Bulldog. That's just a bad match. And then also going back, even though he headlined WrestleMania 8, WrestleMania 8 was filled with tons of botches. And it was a bad match. So I do have to put that out there. Even though he did headline, that was also part of his run. But even though that was Sid Justice, I'm just doing his whole WWE thing as one constructive. So bad from then, no gold then, comes back, gets gold, but no mid-tier titles, and a bunch of bad matches. I shouldn't say
there
a bunch.
Have it, folks. That's it. That's double up. We talk pros, we talk cons, we take a vote, and we hang a jersey in a rafter. And I tell you, some nice jerseys in there. You don't know? Check out the double ups. DNA, it's on you. Who gets your vote to go in the Attitude Era podcast Double Up Hall of Fame?
We putting somebody in the Double Up Hall of Fame. I mean, I'm gonna be totally honest with y'all. My decision is 100% easy. We going with SYCHO SID from WWF, man. I just feel like he was more impactful, was more memorable. The championship runs are more memorable. The matches he went against are more memorable. The impact is more memorable. He aligned himself with Shawn Michaels. That was part of the biggest storyline as the bodyguard that flipped on Shawn Michaels, then came into his own and became a champion. Like I said, matches with Bret Hart, Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Diesel, Vader, British Bulldog. It's just, you know what I mean? I just think that character hit a little harder than the WCW one. The WCW one was a second win. But in this case, I feel like the second win didn't overshadow the first win because the first win was SYCHO SID. So I'm going with SYCHO SID, WWF.
You mentioned a lot of names from what you remember, but from what I remember, that early WCW one was crazy. It was the Horseman. He's a part of the Undertaker story. It was the Junkyard Dog. It was Paul Orndorff. It was Teddy Long. It was the who's who of the 80s. And say, you're a little bit younger than us, but I remember that. And normally I would split the room, but I can't. The WWE, WWF work was just too good. It was too good. I think because that's where he got to really be the most himself. And he had fun at the end in the second WCW run. But those WWE, WWF days, I mean, the long, stringy blonde hair and the sweat dripping in the eyes and the laugh. I mean, you can't deny that was some of his best work. And I'm going to vote for WWE/F SID. HP, it's on you.
Will it be a clean sweep? Well, I'm gonna tell you too. I definitely remember that early SID. His physique really did it. Like that was, and then the way he was the master and ruler of the world. He was always yelling, and that shit was crazy, bro. I ain't gonna hold you. Like him being aligned with the Horseman, throwing up the 4 and all that. It's a lot. However, those cons, you even said it, that Goldberg. I'll take it a step further when they crushed his car again. And he was like, why me? You know what I'm saying? Like, bad. WWE, he doesn't have those. He doesn't. He feuded with the who's who in the zoo. And I can't knock that because I don't even want to. He was so over in Madison Square Garden when he won his first world title with WWF. He fought Shawn Michaels. They were booing Shawn and cheering Sid. Sid was over. So I got to go with Psycho Sid, man. I got to go with Psycho Sid. That was crazy.
There
Go watch
y'all have it, man.
30.
Hands down, the Psycho Sid character, in our opinion, was better than the WCW version of Sid Vicious. Now we need y'all help. We need y'all to listen to everything we said. We need y'all to go do your own research or the personal knowledge you already have, and y'all place a vote for which character y'all think was better in the comments below. Was it the WWE Sid? Was it the WCW Sid? Also, even though you got a clip of Sid's answer on what character he thought was better, go check out the full interview that Sid Vicious had on the Attitude Era podcast right now on our channel. Like, subscribe, hit the notification button, and sign up for the Patreon now. Patreon.com/Attitude Era podcast, where you get all of the double ups early. You get all of our interviews that we do early. You get the never seen footage before with ciphers with AJ Francis, DNA, Max Caster, Mega Ran, a song with DNA, Z the Dropout, and Jacob Fatu, a bonus episode with D'Lo Brown, the Godfather, Devon Dudley, the segment between Archie and HP of They Got Us, Yokozuna episode 1, Undertaking Kane episode 2, and order early content, order early access. Sign up for the Patreon today. Until next time on Double Up. Good night.